So one of the things that we looked at, in your handouts, there's a graph that illustrates the changes between that initial behavior at time 1 and time 2, and we see decreases in behaviors that were off task or negative behaviors such as attention seeking, things like that, over the course of the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. There's another graph that sort of illustrates an assessment measure that looks at overall problems called the brief problem checklist, and we see changes in those measures as well over the course of the school year. So, you know, it's one thing for me to tell you what the research says, but we also see it, you know, in our students' day-to-day behavior and based on their parent report, teacher report, and the students' report as well, that the mental health services that they're receiving in the school has certainly been beneficial for them and has a positive impact on their behavior. So if you have any questions, I will be available at the end. Thank you.
And our final speaker is going to speak from her personal experience, but I will go through your bio. Currently a management analyst for the international travel team under the Office of the Commissioner at the Food and Drug Administration, Michelle Scott started her federal government career in 2006 as an extramural support assistant for the National Institute of Health, Center for Scientific Review. Mrs. Scott is the Vice President of Loud Voices Together Educational Advocacy Group, Inc., a nonprofit organization that aims to connect families and community partners with special education resources to enrich the lives of children. She is also the director of the Liturgical Dance Ministry at her church and a mother of an exceptional young adult who has been able to maximize his potential with the support of programs such as school-based mental health services. Michelle Scott enjoys spending time with family and friends, and her passion is empowering people in order to help them improve the quality of their lives.
Thank you, Bethany. As you read from my bio, I don't feel that I am the most qualified person to be here, but I'm hoping that my story or my experience will be able to enlighten some of you, or at least give you some further insight on what it means to not only the child but the family. I don't know who seemed to have modified what I thought was the agenda, but I'm glad they did, because I'm still kind of jittery from Miss Diamond's story, because I know it. So pardon me, but I'll just try to stick to my reading, because other than that, it is a very emotional type of experience to explain. So again, my name is Michelle Scott. I am a mother of a very talented and gifted child by the name of Heath Scott. Heath started his public education with the infant and toddler program in PG County at James Ryder Elementary School in 2003. After some of my curiosities led me to have him tested for some unique habits he started to display, he was accepted into the infant and toddler program where he received various services based on his initial diagnosis of PDD. At that time, I realized I was going to need as much guidance and assistance as possible to help me navigate the special needs process with and for my child. I was very concerned since I was not prepared for this experience. I wasn't experienced in the area, being a new mother and one who immediately had dedicated what I thought myself to being the best carrier possible. I maintained a very healthy diet. I read several maternity books. I followed all the recommendations of my medical team and made every appointment during my pregnancy. I went as far as to avoiding taking a single dose of medication during my pregnancy out of fear of having any complications passed on to my child. During my pregnancy and afterwards during nursing, I had no idea that I would soon be challenged by the most frightening roller coaster ride ever, after learning that my very precious and healthy baby boy would be diagnosed with a condition that would affect him for a very long time. Well, as this journey started with the PG County Infant and Toddler Program being my only resource, I was very appreciative of the opportunities to have my son receive intervention and other services. I am so sorry. In order to enhance those skills that were not as strong at that time, I stand before you to say that the challenge was not easy, and at times it felt like the hardest fight that I had ever faced. In most cases, the children cannot advocate for themselves, so we become their advocates, and for those of us who serve dual roles, being the parent, it can be very challenging. Each IEP meeting seemed to get very long. My son's IEP list seemed to grow and become more complex, and my emotions seemed to grow out of control. At each meeting, I recall asking for information, guidance, leads, or any resource available to help my son as he matured in age. The response was very slim to none until Heath reached middle school, and I was introduced to a new program, the Prince George's School Mental Health Initiative. The two representatives who sit at that table, wait a minute, I'm sorry. The two representatives seemed to have come out of nowhere. They showed up as if they had been there from the start. These women were prepared and interested in getting started with my son. In fact, outside of the official paperwork, I really think they had already begun their research prior to his arrival to school on the first day. I soon learned that this team was a part of a much greater team. They came into my family's life at a very important time. As you all know, the teenage years are already challenging enough. Now just imagine when you have a teenager who has a different way of viewing just about everything, to include how often they need to attend to their hygiene, all the way to why they have to follow instructions, do chores, or adhere to a simple bedtime. Thanks to the mental health services being offered and received in school, we were able to tackle our most difficult challenges with ease and support. Just when I thought I could not take any more, the mental health program was there to provide services such as weekly counseling. There was one-on-one counseling provided to my son in school. The counseling was both scheduled they were both on an unscheduled and scheduled basis, which allowed the mental health team to assist Heath with crisis management and maintaining the skills he had acquired. They did group therapy, which is where Heath would be able to work on communication skills, active listening, friend making, and reading nonverbal social cues. Case management, which is the one that's so important to me. They provided information and resources to us regularly. They even came into my home to be able to see real time what was going on and how they can make, effective recommendations to improve some of the areas that were not going so well. They did stress management for Heath and for us, behavioral management, chore chart, effective communication, scheduling, and they made sure I kept him involved in the community. They followed up with me regularly. They participated in our IEP meetings. They provided support for me and my family. The school-based mental health services are a tremendous asset to youth and their families. It is my hope that all families who are in need will have access to these services in their local schools from kindergarten throughout graduation and beyond. This will ensure that no child is left behind, no child is left without, or just passed along without receiving the services needed to become independent, successful professionals in life. Thank you.
We'd really like to thank all of our speakers for being here. And as Dr. Cunningham said, they'd love to take questions. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. You may have to speak up a bit, but I can repeat it into the microphone so everyone can hear. Representative.
I want to be sure that SAMHSA gives us information on where to get the website to be able to find out where that is applicable in the schools. In other words, what programs do you have that can help continue to deliver or expand on service delivery for the youth? We're talking about children.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a section on our website, I believe, that talks about.
Give it to them?
Well, thank you. The SAMHSA website is www.samhsa.gov. And if you look at topics, there should be a topic on campuses, I think schools and campuses, and that will lead you to the different places, different programs that we have that focus on schools and have, and then you can go on our grants page. Most of our grants for this year are already out. So our grant announcements for this year, they come out every year in the early January to March, January to April. And so you can see on our grants page what's available right now.
Hi, I'm Libby Nealis with the School Social Work Association of America, and I just want to thank Representative Napolitano because before she even came to Congress, there was no mental health caucus, there was no mental health in schools act, so she's been a huge champion, so thank you so much for that. But my question also is for Dr. Cunningham about, you said that you guys work with, in coordination with the school counselors, the school psychologists, and the school social workers that are already there.
Yes.
You know, in Shortridge County, we've got a great batch of school social workers. Can you describe a little bit more about the importance of that link to the school employed person and the connection to the teachers and the school staff, as well as being there every day to identify the students?
Sure, yes. We work very closely with, sorry, I'm short, so I gotta maneuver. We work very closely with the school counselors, the school social workers. You know, what we have found is that, you know, certainly there are so many students who have such a wide range of issues and concerns. You know, we find that the school psychologists, while they are there and available to provide treatment, are often very busy with assessments and are not in IEP meetings and all the other things they need to do, so they're not as available to provide the direct counseling and support services. Similarly with guidance counselors, you know, they're also available to be able to counsel students, but, you know, they have schedules and, you know, meetings and lots of other things that are also on their plate, so they're not able to be as dedicated to only providing those therapeutic services and supports as our school-based mental health staff are. But we certainly work in very close collaboration with them. They often make referrals as in terms of students that might need more support or need more assistance. We certainly talk a lot with the teachers. Our staff provide an enormous amount of teacher consultation, so helping the teachers, you know, once we only see students for a limited amount of time and then they're going back to their classroom, so helping the teachers understand, you know, how to really help best support those students based on whatever issues or disabilities they might have, and to really help support them in the classroom as well in terms of implementing some of the strategies that can help them be successful.
Hi, I'm Dara Baldwin. I'm a public policy analyst at the National Disability Rights Network with the National Organization for the Clean Air. I just want to thank everyone in this room. I work with the school mental health program through the IDEA community practice. It's really great work. I kind of missed it, but I'll be back to you guys and try and convince them. But anyway, I have two questions. One is, I haven't heard anything or conversation around dual diagnoses or multiple diagnoses. There are children with disabilities who also have mental health, and how we address that situation in the school systems. And there was a young lady here from the representative from Minnesota office. She's an intern, and she has a mental health interest, but she just left, and she was just saying how she's having a problem with her professors understanding her disability. And I'm wondering what we are doing on college campuses to train professors in reference to working with students with mental illness and all disabilities. And I just came from the government, DC local government, and training professors at universities about what disabilities are and disability sensitivities really helped out with them understanding the reasonable accommodation that their students need. And I think that's missing in this conversation on college campuses, because professors think they know everything. I love all professors. But when they hear, I know that when I train professors about disabilities, the light bulb went off, that this is a chronic illness, there's episodic illness, and that, you know, sometimes these students get up in the morning and they cannot come to class. And you need to understand that, and we need to work with you to do that. But college campuses, professors are not getting that. Where elementary, middle, high school, those teachers may be getting that.
So I think with our programs, we know that we work very closely with the Department of Education and with the folks at Administration for Community Living in the developmental disabilities and disabilities world largely. And we recognize that kids with behavioral health problems also, many of them have co-occurring disabilities, whether they're behavioral, cognitive, or physical. So our systems of care programs absolutely take that into consideration in terms of all the needs that those young people have, and many of them have multiple vulnerabilities in that sense. So I think our SAMHSA programs definitely do that. With respect to college campuses, the main work that we're doing right now on campuses does have to do with more particularly suicide. And so I would say we don't really have something in the space that you're talking about. However, I think the good thing about the suicide programming is that it does increase literacy about behavioral health issues. And so that is, I think, a first step in terms of understanding what is the kind of impact that these things can have on young people, and therefore, what do you need to be on the lookout for? So, but I hear you, it's a great suggestion.
I just want to add as well that the Center for School Mental Health recently partnered with a few different organizations, but they recently developed a series of online training modules, and one actually focuses on co-occurring disorders, and it's free. Anybody can log on and take it. So if you go to the center's website, there should be a link to that as well. I think it's Maryland Behavioral Health Online. Yeah, I think it certainly is an important point. You know, one of the things I always talk to parents and teachers about is that, you know, it needs to be a collaborative effort. We can't solve all of these problems by ourselves. And so, you know, we do need the families on board and engaged. We need the school staff engaged. And sometimes, you know, due to a lot of other issues, it's hard for people, you know, sometimes it's hard for us to, what I usually say, kind of play nicely together in the sandbox. You know, sometimes we have competing agendas, but it's important to, you know, always bring back the focus to the student, and, you know, together we can certainly do more than we can in isolation. But I think it's just important to really get that message across that it really does require, you know, the whole village and the whole community to work together. You know, that's where we really see the programs that have the most success, is when we are able to partner with families and partner with community agencies and in the schools, and not work in isolation. Sometimes you may see programs that may sort of set up shop in a school and they're in a corner in the office, but they're not at all engaged in the larger school community and engaged in what's happening in the school. And so it really is important. It makes a huge difference when you do have those collaborative partners and collaborative relationships.
Deb, I'm sure, as you know, there's nothing that SAMHSA does that doesn't involve bringing other partners to the table. For our work in the children's mental health space, we think that everything should be youth-informed and family-centered. It should be culturally competent, it should be evidence-based, it should be trauma-informed and recovery and resiliency-oriented. And so one of the challenges we hear, though, from communities and from states is that applying for some of our opportunities is that much more difficult, because we require, now we're starting to require, you have to bring your Medicaid office to the table. You have to bring housing to the table, employment, labor to the table, because, you know, kids with behavioral health conditions as their leading cause of disability have the lowest rate of employment and the highest dropout rates. So, you know, it's needing to bring together all those partners. So we definitely see it, but I think there needs to be a social shift, because the state says, sure, mental health substance abuse, maybe we can get child welfare to the table. Obviously, the schools are sometimes hard to penetrate because the teachers are very busy. You know, school administrators have a lot on their plates. And then, you know, once you get to Medicaid and housing, I mean, it gets that much harder to bring all those partners to the table. And until everyone understands how central these issues are to their line of business and to their bottom lines, it's going to be hard for them to pay. You know, they're all busy. So how do we get them to have the bandwidth for that? And I do think that there's a national effort that's needed by all the folks that are in this room to keep that drumbeat going about how important it is. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Tisha Winston from the School-Based Health Alliance here in DC. And was wondering, when you talk about partnerships and collaboration and relationships that you have, do you know of any programs that are doing really well in partnering with school-based health center staff and sponsors to deliver some of the services or work alongside of the school mental health program?
So you're asking, do I know of programs that do?
Are there any, and we're also looking for ways to help promote this and, you know, help advertise that this is happening, and also work together with other programs that are offering services, because these services are sometimes offered in our school-based health centers.
Right, yeah. I know you guys are working with the Center for School Mental Health, yeah. So there certainly are programs that are doing that collaboration and doing it quite well. I don't know if you're looking for kind of a list or...
We can talk later. I
Okay.
was just wondering if there are some out there that we need to start tapping into, if we need to reach out a little bit more and help you all promote, as well as vice versa.
Well, one of the things you need to know is, in California, and again, we're on the other spectrum of the U.S., but the program that we started back in 2001 is Mental Health in Schools, which went from 1 high school and 3 middle schools to now 26 schools, on-site clinician delivery to do with all the issues that we were talking about. And the bill was patterned after the program was set up then. What has happened since then, we have formed a mental health consortium. And this is of the mental health individuals who want to work together to partner with each other, to let one other know what they're doing, and to help each other. So they've evolved into, well, we started off with, I don't know, first it was health and then went to nursing and now it's mental health. And it's spun off into 4 categories. Veterans, children, help me out, women's, and policy. And they help us, when we did the Affordable Care Act, they looked at the portion of mental health and recommended the one thing that was missing, and that was the language competency. Because we need to be able to ensure that it's delivered in a language that the parents can understand, never mind the child. The parents has to be able to be involved, as you have said. That's been ongoing. It meets quarterly. They have done a beautiful job in helping each other. It's become a county. We have speakers coming from the county, from the state, mental health providers, parents. They come in and talk to us. This is in LA, Los Angeles is where I represent. But it's something that you can do, is you can start building, and I suggest all of you can network and be able to carry out things similar to this. It is inviting the parents to come in and listen. We had a journalist from the Washington Post, Jaffe, Mr. Jaffe, who's bipolar, and he's a very successful individual, a journalist. People who are willing to come out and say, look, I've gone through this, and this is what I've done to be able to overcome. Well, those are messages that the parents and the children can hear. Ron Artest, Laker, came in and said, hey, look, you know, I'm playing ball because I've been able to deal with my inner demons that parenting and anger management and all this other stuff because of my psychiatrist. Openly, after the championship. And he started the foundation where he gives money to mental health clinics and to schools. So this is, you've got to reach out, you've got to start digging, you've got to start making phone calls. And people here who have an interest can sometimes connect with somebody else. And this is something, this is what unites me and Jill, is that she has a passion for it because of the boxing inference in the mental health. Rocky Council gave over $1 million to UCLA to study brain trauma. Well, guess what? It helps us be able to identify some of that. So you just got to dig a little bit, and you got to put it out. You got to do your own networking in your own area with your parents, and have them become advocates. Because without them, you can't change policy, and you certainly don't get the funding unless there's a pressure there to make it happen. Then you talk about, you said mental health caucus. That's been dormant dormant for a year and a half. I can't get Mr. Murphy to revive it, so we've asked Mr. Gibson, who you met today, some of you, to become my co-chair. The consortium, and then, of course, suicide in universities. One of the highest is in universities. We don't talk about it. And the issue is the pressure it is, you name it, and I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you, but that is one of the highest suicide rates in universities. So somehow we need to be able to convince the university to have the programs to be able to educate not just the student, but the parent, because they deal with the child, maybe not on an ongoing basis, but certainly for the money, I would think. And of course, don't forget, Affordable Care was supposed to give us parity in mental health access to mental health support. Well, if there are loopholes, you gotta tell us, because we can't change that policy unless you tell us where the loopholes are to be able to ensure that everybody has access to mental health services from our providers. So with that, I thank you very much. God bless you.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Jennifer Thomas, and I work at the Institute for Education and Leadership within the National Collaborative on Workforce and Disability, which is a technical assistance center housed at the Institute. I want to first just thank you panelists for sharing the information that you have with us today. My question is in regard to our Youth Action Council on Transition. We have teams in different states across the country, and those teams consist of 2 youth and adult partners and a sponsoring organization that work together so that these youth are able to lead but learn about youth-adult partnerships and how to actually partner with adults to implement different policies or affect systems in their local communities. One of our teams is located in Indiana, and they are very focused on the mental health system and how to make improvements. And one of the youth on that team is interested in starting support groups for youth with disabilities and who may have other mental health concerns. And she's thinking that hospitals might be a good setting as well as schools, because she talks about how her own experiences and how she had been hospitalized and just the different stigma that occurs. So my question is, are there any resources that you all can provide or point me to that I can point her to that would be helpful for her in setting up this youth-directed or youth-led support group around mental health concerns so that she's aware of all the different issues and thinking about other things that maybe she hadn't thought of as of yet in addition to her own concerns?
One group that's really wonderful and inspirational is Youth Move National. So you're already familiar with them. Also Young People in Recovery for those who are in addiction recovery. And I think those would probably be the 2 best for those with lived experience. And then another group, which also speaks to Congresswoman Napolitano's concern about what's happening on our campuses, is Active Minds, which is another wonderful group that's doing a lot to educate folks on college campuses about the issues around mental health.
Does the state have any programs? Have you contacted your state to find out whether they have operating programs? The state mental health office?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, have you contacted your state providers? Do they have a mental health department that you may be able to see whether they have any funding to be able to carry out what you're asking for?
That's a good question, and we can definitely, within my office, probably work with them and their team to help figure that out.
Do you know of anybody in that state that you might be able to direct her to?
Because they're in that particular team is in Indiana.
Yeah, we can try to connect you with folks in Indiana, both whether we have a Safe Schools Healthy Students grant and we have relationships with the folks that manage the mental health block grant. And there's probably a child or youth coordinator for the state, so we can try to make those connections. Yeah.
And Jennifer, this is Dara. You know they can always contact their state. PMA Indiana has a great, and that PMA board is excellent. There's several people on that Indiana PMA board. Okay.
And I want to ask Jill, because she had a great idea that she was whispering in my mind about to
sometimes to young people is that getting emotional counseling isn't it. I mean, if you have a flabby body and you go to the gym, people always say, yay, you lost 100 pounds and how wonderful it is. But if your mind is a little flabby or something, nobody ever says, oh, I just finished therapy, you're doing so much better. No one. So I'm thinking of if we could develop a hip way to think of for kids, like calling it mental gymnastics. So you can either go to gym or mental gymnastics, or some way that, out of the box, that people would actually think that getting therapy was a hip thing to do. You do it for your body, you do it for your mind, and then you become a super person because you have it all knocked.
Great, thank you.
Other questions?
Any comments, anybody? Would you like to see something like this happen on a quarterly basis? Yes. I'd like to see that. Well, here's a kid that's going to help make it. This is Jonah, and most of you have either talked to him, and now we have a volunteer, Ron, that is getting involved with Ron. There he is. That's helping out. And I take volunteers because this is something that is so critical, especially with children. That's my soft spot. I have 4 great-grandchildren, and to me, there's nothing more precious than seeing them evolve, healthy, and sane. So Jonah is here to help, and so am I. All of you, my suggestion is that maybe you share. If anybody wants to put on a card whether you want to share your information with each other and become a network of assistance to each other, please feel free to do so, because you are the one that have to move the ball up. It isn't up to me. It is you that are going to make it happen. All we can do is try on this end, and unfortunately, we're short of funds at SAMHSA, we're short of funds everywhere, and the climate here is not conducive to us being able to push the agenda for my bill or any other mental health bill. We tried last year, it failed. There's no way that anybody can say there's a mental health bill that's going to be on the hill, because they won't allow any funding for anything that isn't already programmed. So we need your help. Just keep us together, and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you.
And I know that the founding partners would like to extend special thanks to Jonah for putting up with us and helping us organize this wonderful briefing. So, we'd also like to thank our supporting organizations, other national groups here in DC that supported our putting on this briefing. And I think that one step we can take forward, at least, is supporting Representative Napolitano's mental health in schools bill. And so I'd just like to say thank you for everyone for coming and listening to us on this incredibly important topic, and let's follow up with all of the suggestions. So much.